This week, the US, the UK, the European Union, and Australia added additional sanctions against Russia in response to its invasion of Ukraine, which are already impacting global markets and the ASEAN region. And here to discuss with us is VOA Correspondent Jessica Stone. She joins us live from Washington, D.C.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So first of all, we want to ask you, can you outline what these nations are doing with respect to sanctions on Russian oil? Could you just give an explanation, please?
Of course. The U.S. is banning Russian imports of oil, gas, and all energy products. That is going to go into effect on April 22nd. We don't expect that to really be the significant bite in the Russian economy because Russian oil only amounts to about 8% of the U.S. supply. But what is more significant is that the UK and Europe are also making arrangements to limit Russian energy imports. The UK pledging to effectively phase out Russian oil imports by the end of the year. And the European Union, which gets more than 40% of its energy supply from Russia, has now pledged to reduce its dependence on Russian energy by 2/3 by the end of this year. Again, not much short-term impact expected, according to experts, on the Russian economy. But obviously, over the long term, we do expect to see a bite of the Russian economy. Meantime, everyone across the planet, I'm sure you're seeing it in Indonesia as well, is paying higher energy prices. We saw global crude spike to $132 a barrel on Tuesday. It has since eased off, but that was the highest price for a barrel of oil, guys, in 14 years.
Ms. Stone, what do you think the implications would be for us here in the South Asian region? What should the region prepare for? As you mentioned before, some Western European countries have already felt the implications on gas shortages and price hikes previously provided and sourced from Russia due to sanctions enforced by the European Union.
Well, look, the timing is absolutely terrible for the reopening of the tourism sector across Southeast Asia. I know Bali just opened its doors again to surfers and to travelers on Monday. They are very popular, as is the region. The beaches of the region are very popular with tourists. And that was just getting restarted after the COVID-19 pandemic really affected tourism across the region. We know that Russian tourists also favor these beaches, so we expect to see an impact there. Now, in terms of airlines, which really form the backbone of travel, trade, and tourism throughout the region, experts say they'll be impacted as well. Higher fuel prices, for example, could mean fewer routes. So look for that, and look for look for airline companies to also try to make other arrangements with respect to where they get their oil. They are going to be paying more for fuel, that is for sure, though. And, you know, everybody is going to see an impact at their pump. And don't forget, Ukraine is also a major exporter of wheat. And so that's also a commodity that we expect to see a spike in.
Okay, now I also want to ask you about a slightly separate type of sanction, that is a sanction on Russian military equipment and the Russian defense industry. Now, will this impact Southeast Asia and sort of the defense capabilities in Southeast Asia, this sanction on Russia's defense industry and military equipment? Could you just explain to our viewers, please?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question because it will have an impact. We don't know exactly how, but we know that the export restrictions that the U.S. placed prior to these oil sanctions on all Russian military equipment effectively makes it almost impossible for any country to purchase additional Russian military equipment. And that means parts, that means manuals for repairs, that means expertise. And this is specifically significant for the region because Russia is a major arms exporter to Southeast Asia. In fact, between 2000 and 2019, Southeast Asia purchased almost $11 billion in arms supplies from Russia. And that makes it the biggest arms supplier to the region, even bigger than the United States. Now, we have seen some countries, in particular Indonesia recently, start to shift away from Russia. If you remember, in February, Indonesia actually left a deal for Russian fighter equipment, Russian fighter jets specifically, in favor of purchasing those same jets from the United States and France. So we could see a shift away from dependence on Russian military equipment, but obviously there's a lot already in the region.
All right, Ms. Stone, let's talk about now about one of Russia's neighbor. China has just announced its lowest economic growth goal in 20 years of being just 5.5%. How much of that do you think is tied to the Ukraine crisis and the sanctions the world is putting on Russia?
Well, so far, experts don't believe it's been quite baked in. They believe the majority of this 5.5% goal is really a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, Europe is a big trading partner, as is the United States of China, and they've all been impacted incredibly by the lockdowns and by the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of tourism and other economic impacts. Some analysts are actually telling Voice of America, though, they believe the 5.5% GDP goal is actually low. Why? Because these same export markets for China, particularly the EU and the United States, have been and will be so impacted by the next round of sanctions we're seeing against Russia, particularly oil and commodities like wheat and soybeans, which of course Indonesia is no stranger to as well. There are also fewer ways for Beijing to sort of navigate the restrictions in the supply chain now. If you think of the big companies Xiaomi and Lenovo, they're the #2 suppliers of phones and computers to Russia. They have American parts inside of them. Those companies rely on American manufacturers to make those pieces of equipment, and they can no longer be sold in Russia. So we should see some impact over the short to medium term of these sanctions on China with respect to that. But of course, we'll have to see how that all turns out. We do know that we will be watching, and of course, China is a major economy across the globe, has a great impact on every economy, and so its slowdown could ripple through the rest of the world.
Okay, now I want to go back on sanctions tied to oil. As we were mentioning before, of course, oil prices have been skyrocketing. Gas prices in the United States have also been increasing to record highs. Now, I just want to ask, from the U.S. public, the U.S. public's perspective, are they sort of supporting the sanction to ban Russian oil imports? Because that's going to push gas prices even higher. Are they behind that, or are they angry about it? Or what's the perspective from the U.S. public?
Well, yeah, it's a really important question, and you're going to see different results in the polling than you do in your private conversations with people. We've already seen some polls that indicate about 71% of Americans are supportive of these oil sanctions if it means that this Ukraine crisis comes to a close. But look, I saw my personal gas station go up over 25 cents just over the weekend. That means that I have been filling up my car almost every day just to make sure I get the most recent gas price for my family. And people are not going to be happy with high gas prices over the long term. Nobody really likes to see their prices go up. And we've already, as you mentioned earlier, seen food prices go up. And this is, of course, after a period of prolonged lockdown and malaise in our economy with respect to sort of how we feel inside our homes. We've been working from home, schooling from home. This is not going to be a very positive impact on the private lives of Americans. At least that's what I'm hearing anecdotally from